What up guys, SuperMetal983 here bringing us another album review, and this time we've got some sick as fuck hardcore for you to check out today. But yeah, I'm going to be reviewing the new album from the band Get the Shot, entitled Merciless Destruction. This is released under Useless Pride Records and New Damage Records in 2022. Now, if you're not too familiar with Get the Shot, they're a 5-piece hardcore band hailing from Quebec, Canada, and I've been a fan of these guys for a couple of years now, ever since quite a few years back now. I checked out their last album, which came out in 2017, entitled Infinite Punishment, which is this one right here. And yeah, I've got a t-shirt of this album, and this album to me is one of my favourite hardcore albums to listen to, and it's quite a go-to album when I'm in the mood for hardcore. Like, I listen to other hardcore bands like Hatebreed, Lionheart, D's Nuts, and all that sort of stuff, but Get the Shot's Infinite Punishment is an album that I do love to stick on. This is an absolutely fantastic album. It's very riff heavy and it's full of intensity, and I think it's absolutely incredible. If you haven't heard this album, make sure you do so. It's, like I said, incredible. So yeah, I know they have 2 previous albums to that album, which honestly I've never checked out before, which I probably should check out because I'm a massive fan of that album, but I've never actually got around to listening to their earlier stuff. But anyways, so in 2022 we get ourselves a new album. I was very, very hyped up for this, especially seeing the artwork. I fell in love with the artwork. I think it looked absolutely amazing and I was really excited for it. And then not too long ago the album dropped, and here we are to do a review of it. So yeah, it's 11 tracks and runs around 39 minutes in length. And yeah, as I said, Infinite Punishment is an album that I do go to quite often when it comes to hardcore, and Get the Shot have really outdid themselves on this album, if you ask me, because this is exactly what I wanted the follow-up to be and what I needed in a good, heavy hardcore album like this. This is a different kind of heavy to most typical hardcore bands. This is pummelingly heavy. Like, this is verging on a bit of metalcore and deathcore sort of heavy, like kind of typical American sort of metalcore, hardcore blended bands, you know, the likes of Knock Loose and what they call it, Those Who Fear, for example. That sounded like, you know, 50-50 sort of sound there. But these guys definitely know how to bring the less is more variety in this fucking album, and in my opinion it just delivers sweet and true to its sound. Like, it's nothing flash, it's nothing out of the ordinary, should we say. It's not there to show off or be like look at me, look what I can do sort of vibe. It's just there to be sheer pummeling heaviness and make you just want to headbang, two-step, or even just mosh your dick off. That is what this album, I think, perfectly represents, and it is a sweet album to listen to, if you ask me, from beginning to end. From the first track, Ultimate Warfare, which comes in with that little sample at the start, just to, right, prepare for madness sort of thing, and then it just goes straight into, it's only like 2 minutes long, this sort of intro track, but in that short space of time, from the sample kicking in, you know straight away it's a Get the Shot record, and it's gonna pummel you from beginning to end. Like, in my opinion, this is an album that from beginning to end doesn't let up and doesn't fail to pack you with a massive fucking punch of just heavy riffs and sheer intense aggression and just pure metal intensity. It's got that sort of vibe going for it. It's a record that you can just stick on and just have a good time to. Like, it is very aggressive, very angry sounding, but it gives us that sort of feeling of like, yeah, this is a fun album to listen to, and it kind of transitions that sort of way that you need to see these guys live to hear these songs live. And if a record can pass off that sort of vibe, it makes you want to go and see these guys live. And I haven't seen these guys live, but I really do need to see them live, especially after hearing songs from this album. Like, it is an absolute riff fest, but it's heavy and chunky, and the sound of the overall production, which I believe Christian Donaldson, from what I found out, he done the mixing and mastering and recording of this album, and it is work from his work with Cryptopsy, his project obviously, to Shadow of Intent, Ingested, and I've got to plug my boys Osaya. his overall sound is fucking incredible, if you ask me. And this one, definitely, he's managed to make it sound even more loud, intense, and just overall, just a really, it feels like you are listening to the band live on this record, as I said, but it just feels just so good to listen to, but it just packs a punch. Every single track packs a punch in one way, shape, or form. And I say that because there's a couple of tracks on here that definitely don't fit into that heavy is more sort of factor, which I'll get to in a second. But from beginning to end, it is just riffs, aggression, and pure animosity. Like, it is a hate-filled album, but it's just filled with so much catchy hooks on there that make you want to headbang from beginning to end. I mean, the song Seeds of Dissension, I believe how it's pronounced, I'm no good at pronunciation, as you know, is an absolutely incredible track to kick off in big time. I'm like, it's pretty heavy, the first track, Ultimate Warfare, but I class that as more of a like intro to the album. And when that song kicks in, you know, right, I'm here for the full Monty, this is it, and you're on a ride pretty much from there on. That's not going to stop until you get later on into the album, which I'll get to in a second. I will go straight into one of my favourite tracks on this album, which is Deathbound, the fourth track on this album, which in my opinion is one of the heaviest songs I have heard this year. Like, in general, I've talked about heavy breakdowns in the Spite video, and talked about like Bone Carver, for example, Awaken Providence. I've talked about these heavy as fuck bands, but this one just has a different kind of heavy. It just smacks you right in the face. It's literally a full punch to the face with no holding back. It's just punch after punch. Like, it has this sort of like one knockout punch, and then as you feel like you're getting back up, it hits you with another breakdown, and then another breakdown, and it's just filled with that sort of vibe that's just angry as fuck, and I absolutely love it. It just feels really good to listen to in the metalhead's perspective, shall we say. But it also features a little guest spot from Rob Watson of Lionheart, which, as I said, I love Lionheart, and his vocal contrast with the already intense vocal performance that's on here from the higher vocals and stuff, to have his sort of more traditional hardcore guest spot in there, it kind of creates this really nice contrast on the track as well, because it's like three vocals sort of playing off from the lows to their energetic, intense high vocals, to then those Rob sort of traditional hardcore vocals being on that. It really creates this really nice atmosphere, but it creates different impacts here and there, and it just really works, in my opinion, and makes it, in my opinion, one of the best songs I've heard this year. It's just simple, and just less is more, and just absolute intensity from beginning to end. Fucking love that song. And then a song I believe they released quite a while back, which was Bloodbather, featuring Matthias, I think is his name, from Nasty, and Nasty are becoming one of the big dogs in hardcore and beatdown, especially in Europe, and that song is another absolutely amazing song. Rain and Blasphemy, another incredible song. And then you've got this kind of like, I will say, actually before I get onto this other track, the overall sound and production sound, like the guitars sound really chunky, very thick sound, and there's a lot of hardcore which sounds, in my opinion, pretty tinny, and it doesn't come across as aggressive as it should do, and I think that might be a more traditional sort of sound to it, but when it sounds chunky like it is on this record, it just makes it just that bit more diabolical and intense. Like, it just feels a little bit more grittier and a bit more stand out from the crowd, you know, and I really like that about this overall. They're kind of in the same sort of line as Knock Loose sort of thing. They really low tune, but heavy as fuck and just chunky. I love that shit. And then the drum work is absolutely incredible. The grooves on this album, there's a lot of groove that makes you do the pigeon mop, as I've referred to in a couple of videos, and also headbang, and also two-step. it's all for that. The grooves are intricate, they're simple when they need to be, and the fills are very creative on here as well, so it's very, very good props to the drummer. And also there's some like lead section on here which kind of have this kind of like southern sort of sludgy sort of feel in there, the way that and even some elements of like classic rock solos in there as well, that really breaks it up from just sheer riffs to like, oh, there's a nice, really tasty lick in there, just to like keep your attention going. Like, it's like you can fall off when it's just riff after riff after riff, but then when there's these subtle moments of like leads in there, it just makes the record just that little bit more interesting. So I really like that, and there's not a great deal of heavier bands that use leads as much these days, but it really works on a record like this, and I really have to get the shot props to that. And then I'm going to continue on this bit before I get to the vocals. There's a little interlude sort of track towards the end called Diabolus Vobiscum. I think I've used those words before in previous reviews, and I've butchered them again probably, so you know how it is. But yeah, it's like a clean sort of interlude sort of feel song, which kind of like gives you a little bit of breather. I mean, it's like the 8th song, so you've had like 7 tracks of pummeling hatred and just anger and just intensity, and then it just softens you up. It's just like you're coming to an end, and then it hits you with Divination of Doom, which is another one of my favourite tracks on this album. It's an absolute amazing song. It's kind of got a real nice hook to it with the vocal structure and the lyrics on there, so that was definitely a memorable song for me. And then you got Blank Space, and then the last track on this album was one that kind of surprised us in a way, and that is Season of the Damned 2, which is kind of like a more ballady oriented song, kind of reminds us in a way of Higher Place from Malevolence, Higher Place and The Other Side by Malevolence, like that kind of like ballady, softer sort of side to the band, but it really fits in well with the album and gives a really nice conclusion to the overall sound of the album, because you've had pure rage and aggression from beginning to end, not near enough the end, and then it comes in with this kind of like ballady, heavy in elements last track, and it really just sets a nice tone to the end of the album. And when you reflect on it at the end, you're like, wow, that track I didn't expect. And then you're like, did I listen to the same album? And you go and listen to it again, which is what I did, and I fell in love with the album on the second time round. I was like, yep, this is definitely one of the best sounding hardcore albums of 2022. Like, I've listened to a couple of hardcore albums and nothing's really stood out, but when I heard Get the Shot was releasing a new album, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be all over this, and I am. So, and lastly, I want to quickly plug those vocals. They're absolutely incredible. They definitely have that sort of raggy, sort of knock loose, straight from the past, sort of high-end sort of vocals, maybe Rage Against the Machine in some levels, people may say, but more angrier, should we say. It definitely feels like that, and it just comes across very aggressive, and I use that word a lot, but it really feels like a lot of animosity is being poured out when the recording process is being going, because it feels that there is a lot of pain and wretchedness in those vocals, and it just really sits well for me. And it really did influence us to listen to a bit more Knock Loose recently, and Malevolence. So when an album can like transition you into different other bands, but you still come back to that album, you know it's a fucking good album, and this is a fucking great album if you ask me. And I touched upon it at the start, the artwork is absolutely incredible. I think his name's Daemorph, Daemo. I'll leave a link down below. He does a lot of brutal death metal artworks. I know he's done Abominable Putridity and a couple of others. And when I saw the artwork, I was like, I recognise that style from somewhere. But in general, I loved the idea from how it's just going to be a heavy as fuck hardcore album, but with a sort of death, slammy, deathcore sort of artwork. And it really makes you focus on it, because I love a good album with good artwork. And this one is definitely one of my favourite artworks of the year. I think it's absolutely pristine and amazing. So yeah, I would definitely shout out the songs Deathbound, Seeds of Dissension. I'll get that right. And Terminal Slaughter, and also Divination of Doom. Absolutely incredible songs, and this is definitely, in my opinion, a big step up from Infinite Punishment. Like, as I said, Infinite Punishment is an incredible album, but this has overtook it. This is an absolutely incredible album. It might make it into my top albums at the end of the year, because the more I listen to it, the more I find, like, wow, I love this track, or I love this moment. It's absolutely incredible. Make sure, if you're into hardcore, like Knock Loose, Malevolence, Those Who Fear, if that's your vibe, then definitely get on this record. It's fucking incredible. For an overall score, though, I'm going to give this a solid 8 out of 10. Absolutely incredible record. Make sure you check it out. There'll be links down below of where you can listen to the album, order the album, which I urge you to do so. And there'll also be links down below of where you can check out my Super Metal Riffs for Days playlist, which features the song Deathbound in there. Absolutely incredible song. It's in the playlist along with some amazing other tracks. But yeah, make sure you check it out, and I'll see you until next video. And remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.